Hello, I'm Janet Moran, Executive Director of Priests for Life. And you just saw that powerful spot about Rachel's Vineyard. Right now, we're still stuck in so many people with the quarantine. And unfortunately, because of that, our Rachel's Vineyard retreats have been postponed. And we're hoping real soon, as different states begin to open up, we'll have those retreats scheduled again. But I want you to know we're still here for you. And I want you to go to a special web page. I'm going to tell it to you right now. Abortionforgiveness.com. That's abortionforgiveness.com. You can put in your zip code, and you'll see where's the nearest Rachel's Vineyard retreat team to where I live. And what they can do, you say, okay, well, Janet, if there's no retreat, how can they help me? Oh, they can. They'll be in touch with you via email or a phone call. You can reach out to them, and they'll come back to you with their counselors. Every retreat team has a certified counselor that works with them on those retreats. So while you're stuck at home, and maybe you're thinking about that past abortion, and you're realizing, I really need to deal with this. And of course, if you've had the chance to go to confession, you know the Lord's forgiven you. But the step that takes a little bit harder work is to forgive yourself. And that's what happens through Rachel's Vineyard. You have the ability to forgive yourself. And so I want you to go to abortionforgiveness.com and reach out to the nearest retreat team. They're here for you and to help you to begin the path to healing. It'll be somebody that you can have just maybe you don't want to talk on the phone. Maybe you just want to have an email conversation. That's okay too. Every retreat team has a person who's like their intake person for the retreat team. There's a phone number there. There's an email there. Reach out and let them begin to get you on that path of total forgiveness. Like I said, you might have accepted the fact that the Lord has forgiven you. There's no such thing as the unforgivable sin. But now we've got to do that extra grief work and forgive ourselves. So again, abortionforgiveness.com. Well, after women have gone through healing, very often they'll want to be involved to help other women who are still hurting, or to help stop a woman from having an abortion, for going down that road, because it didn't solve problems. It created a whole bunch of other problems for them. Well, as I told you in these programs before, I co-founded the Silent No More Awareness Campaign with my good friend Georgette Forney from Anglicans for Life. We actually began the concept all the way back in 2002, and we launched our first events in 2003. And we might say, well, what sparked us to start this? Well, basically, the National Organization for Women and other groups like NARAL, they claim to speak, and they still do, for all women, right? Don't they? They say, oh, it's health care, and we're speaking for the women to stand up so they can have their abortions. And we knew from all the women who had gone through Rachel's Vineyard and other healing programs, that wasn't the case. They're not speaking for these women. These women bought the lie or felt pressured into that abortion and found out it didn't solve their problem. It created all these other problems. And now so many of these women were ready to join us and become Silent No More. Now, in order to be Silent No More, there's a few conditions we have. You had to have gone through a retreat program. You had to have told your family, because with social media now, you just can't get up and say, I regret my abortion, and not think other people are going to find out. So we really want to make sure that the women who do speak for Silent No More, and the men, that they're doing it in a safe place. They've gone through healing, they've told their family, and they really feel that God's calling them to share. So we held our first events all the way back in 2003, and what we did was we came in front of the Supreme Court, because the National Organization for Women on January 22nd every year was having this big hootenanny celebration for choice. Oh, this is great, Roe v. Wade, and my body, my choice. And we said, well, you know what? They're not going to take center stage. They're not going to be showing up there speaking for all women. We're going to show up with the women from Silent No More, and we're going to give them a voice. And that's what we did back in 2003. So the footage we have from back then, you might say, Joe, it's dark, it's at night. Yes, because it was a candlelight vigil, because that's what the National Organization for Women used to do. So we would come about the same time, about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening on January 22nd, right after the March for Life. And the women, one after one, would give their testimony. And by 2004, we had our first man give testimony. So what we did in those early days, we compiled the testimonies to tell a story. And so what I did was I went back into our archives and I found the original DVD we did of compiling those early events that we had for Silent No More. And it paints a really good story. It tells, first of all, why they had that abortion, what happened to them during that abortion, and then finally, it also showed you how they found healing. So let's take a look at this original Silent No More DVD.
There is only one decision I regret, and it is abortion.
I had an abortion, and it was something I regret to this day.
In 1973, women gathered in front of the U.S. Supreme Court to say they would be silent no more because their sisters were dying from illegal abortions. In 2003, women gathered again at the Supreme Court. This time they said they would be silent no more because legal abortion had caused them emotional, physical, and spiritual problems, and women are still dying. This personal perspective of abortion is the missing voice in the abortion debate, and it was the catalyst behind the development of the Silent No More awareness campaign.
I realized there was this group thing going on, this quiet thing that was happening where all of us were hurting, but nobody was talking about it. And as I would hold women and they would cry in my arms and we'd comfort one another, I would think, this has got to end. We've got to do better for women. Abortion is not a solution.
The Silent No More awareness campaign started out with women throughout the United States sharing their personal abortion experience, and it has quickly grown to include women from around the world who also know the painful after effects of abortion and want to be silent no more.
Very often people listen to the National Organization of Women and they claim to speak for women. Well, we're here to provide a different voice. We're here to say that they are not speaking for all women, and all women do not think that abortion is a great thing. And these are women who've actually experienced abortion, and they want to make a statement here. Our goal is to make abortion unthinkable, an unthinkable choice for any woman that is pregnant.
As the co-founders developed the campaign to raise awareness, similar to the AIDS and breast cancer awareness campaigns, they saw the benefit of having a celebrity spokesperson to personify the reality of their message. Graciously, actress, CoverGirl model, and author Jennifer O'Neill agreed to share her own experience and put a voice to the reality of choice.
My story was one of a young girl that I was engaged and I became pregnant, and I was thrilled. I was so excited. And the father of my baby not only did not want that baby, but he harassed me and pressed me and pushed me. I folded. I was responsible for that abortion. But it wasn't a choice I wanted, but I was responsible. So I beat myself up for years. I had self-loathings, low self-esteem. You feel in your heart and your soul there's something wrong.
In addition, Dr. Alveda King, niece of Dr. Martin Luther King, joined us in being silent no more.
The daddy didn't want it. He was making threats. That still wasn't reason enough. But Roe versus Wade had just passed, and my medical insurance paid for it, and that was real crazy now that I think back on it. But right after I did it, I began to wonder, did the baby feel it? Did it hurt? Was it a boy? Was it a girl?
More than 1 million abortions occur each year, making it the most common female surgical procedure done annually in the United States. The choice to have an abortion was created to allow each woman reproductive freedom. However, during the campaign gatherings, women share the reality of why we chose abortion.
Everybody had told me that it was the only thing that I could do as a 16-year-old girl facing a crisis pregnancy. They wouldn't let me see my ultrasound.
My mom said an abortion would be the best thing. The best thing for who? Not my baby, not me. She said it would end the pain I was in. Abortion did not end my pain, it began it.
I was in a dysfunctional, abusive marriage. I was abusing cocaine, alcohol, and methamphetamines. I tell you this not to excuse what I did, but because the abortion industry would have you believe that any one of those things I just mentioned was an ideal reason to kill my child, and that's what I heard.
My husband said we couldn't afford another baby. When I refused to have an abortion, he threatened to leave us. I'd never seen him so angry. I knew he meant it.
My mother forced me to have an abortion at the age of 15. She did not want me to ruin my life as having me had ruined hers.
When I told my husband, he became very angry and said he couldn't handle anymore.
I decided to have my baby. I didn't think my boyfriend would have a problem with it, but to my surprise, the day that I told him, all of that came crashing down. He could not believe that I would even consider having the child. After, going through the discussion with him, and also after my father, who loved his daughter very much and knew that she had all these hopes and dreams, he convinced me and my boyfriend that abortion was my best choice.
While friends and family see abortion as a simple solution to an unintended pregnancy, we are rarely encouraged to talk about what happened during the actual abortion procedure and how we felt about it. But the truth must be told.
As I lay there and listened to the vacuum cleaner suction out my baby, not only did the baby die, but a part of me died that day also.
I remember walking in the doctor's office while feeling my baby kicking inside of me. I remember leaving that office knowing that my body was preparing itself to expel this baby. And I knew that my baby was dying in me.
Having an abortion is often much more traumatic than we expect. We think we are the only ones struggling because no one talks about the feelings we go through afterwards. Now women are realizing the abortions they had years ago are the source of physical and emotional problems they are dealing with today. Listen to how our abortions have affected us.
They did not tell me having an abortion would increase the chances of having a miscarriage and the inability to be pregnant again.
I caught a very bad infection that went into my kidney.
And for months, I was awakened in the night by screams, piercing in the night. They were mine.
I had this one recurrent dream of this baby falling and I'm trying to reach it, and I'd wake up screaming because it was always just out of my reach.
Nobody told me that I would walk into this self-hatred that would drive me toward death. Nobody told me that I would use drugs to numb the pain, alcohol.
Emotionally, I suffered from deep depressions, breakups with boyfriends, guilt, shame, anger, fear, and a sense of enduring worthlessness.
I emerged from that healing institution with an invisible wound. A wound that went so deep that it would affect me for the rest of my life.
I started having nightmares and depression, and I had to seek help, and I realized I needed help for this healing. And I got it, and God's been good to me, and this ministry's been good for me.
As the Silent No More awareness campaign began to grow, men asked if they could share the regret they feel for their involvement in aborting their children.
I realized how small of a man I was, because if I had gone with her that day, I probably would have realized what was happening. Maybe I would have realized what was happening. Maybe I would have saw how upset, how broken she was, and taken her by the hand and said, come on, let's get out of this place. And I didn't even do that.
I didn't defend the life of my own daughter based on misinformation, selfishness, fear, shame. I let her die to an abortionist's knife. And I died the same day.
I wonder how my son or daughter would look like today if I would have stand up and be a man and fight for the life of my child.
You see, one of the biggest things that causes so much pain and that causes the suffering to continue for so long is the sense of isolation, the sense of being cut off from everyone else, being alone. And there came one day when there was an ad in a paper, which was put out by very many good people, just like you, that talked about how many of us had suffered. And right away there was that connection. And right away there was the process of healing that began. And there is hope, and there is healing for men and for women.
Forgiveness is the key to healing after abortion. Going through an abortion recovery program enables those suffering to also address many of the other emotions surrounding the experience.
And that's when my life really changed, because the post-abortion counseling brings up this emotions that have been festering inside of you for all these years, the unforgiveness, anger, grief, all these things that you've been burying down. And so I was able to, through the counseling, give my children names and give them real personhood. Then I was finally able to grieve the loss from the abortion.
That night, a supernatural encounter with the living God derailed my attempt to take my own life. And it started a journey toward healing, reconciliation, and restoration that continues to this day.
Pregnant women deserve better than abortion. We need for society, especially churches, to offer real choices and support so abortion will be unnecessary and ultimately unthinkable.
We are silent no more.
Pretty amazing, isn't it? And if you noticed, like I said, it was dark out and it was freezing cold. So many of these events that we had in January are freezing cold. And we were standing out there for several hours. On average, we've had anywhere from 40 to 60 men and women speak at these gatherings. And each one gives their complete testimony for about 2 or 3 minutes. So we're standing out there for a long time giving those testimonies. Maybe you're interested in listening to a complete or full testimony. You can just go to the simple web page on our website, the Silent No More website, called abortiontestimony.com. That's abortiontestimony.com. We have a great page there that's a search engine. And what you can do is you can click off the testimony you would like to hear. So maybe you want to hear a first trimester testimony. You click that. Maybe you want to hear a testimony of someone who was raped and then had that abortion and how their lives spun out of control after that. You would click rape and incest. Maybe there was someone who has a story about life of the mother, where women were told they had to choose between the life of their child or their own lives. And these doctors coerced and forced them and basically pressured them into having an abortion. You could click off life of the mother and watch those testimonies. Maybe you want to hear testimonies of just the dads. You click up father of aborted baby and you'll read those testimonies. You know, don't let those testimonies just stay on our website. We want you to take them and use them. I mean, social media is a great way, you know, especially if you see people out there talking about abortion. Oh, it's great, it's healthcare. You can say, wait a minute. I challenge you, watch this. I challenge you, listen to that. So again, you can go to abortiontestimony.com, and there's where you can get a complete window into all the testimonies we have on our website. And our general website for Silent No More is just silentnomore.com, and that's where you'll see all the information about, maybe you know someone who has gone through healing, and maybe they're thinking about being silent no more. All the information on how to do that is on our website, again, at silentnomore.com. You know, since we founded this campaign all the way back in 2002 and held our first events in 2003, I can tell you that there are babies alive today because a woman who was considering an abortion heard a testimony and said, wait a minute, oh my goodness. You know, when they're considering having that abortion, so many of these women feel trapped, abandoned, desperate, confused, and deep down in their soul, they know it's a baby, but they're blocking that out, and they're worried about what's going to happen to them. When they hear a testimony from some of these women who the only child they were ever able to conceive was that child they aborted because of the physical damage done to them in that abortion, that could be a game changer. That could be a game stopper. They'll say, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that, you know, I could be hurt from this abortion. And that's the truth. You know, women still die from abortion today. Don't believe that lie, you know, about the coat hanger abortions and all that. No. Women are still dying in abortion clinics because of what's supposed to be this safe, legal abortion. Not true. and the physical damage. I mean, the list goes on and on. And again, you can go to our website, silentnomore.com, look for more information. We even had a beautiful section there for those of you who have lost a child to abortion. We have a little spot where you can click on and you can do a memorial to your baby, where you can put the baby's name and a little plaque on the internet. And some women find that very comforting and healing too. So again, use our Silent No More campaign, use our website to change hearts and minds, stop women from going down that road, and you'll see that we'll have more people than ever before being silent no more. And of course, like I said, the first point was to bring more people to healing. Again, abortionforgiveness.com. Put in your zip code and get the help that's needed. Well, with Silent No More, we've been very blessed in this ministry to have people want to help us get the message out. Well, Jamie Owens Collins is a famous Christian music producer and singer. And a number of years ago, she saw our gatherings in Washington. Her and her husband, Dan, had come to one of our gatherings. They're actually from California. And she was so inspired by listening to these testimonies that she went back to California and she wrote a song for us, a Silent No More song. And then we have some very talented videographers here at Priest for Life, and one is my dear friend Kurt Shumay. And so they took Jamie's music that she did professionally recorded and created this music video. So I'd like you to watch that right now. It's our Silent No More music video, so take a look.
In my fear, I believed a lie all those years. I was trying to hide away, ashamed of the light of day. Made a choice, thinking I'd be free, but that choice, it imprisoned me in my shame. Till I stepped into the light of God's light, the healing began. I'm free from the shame, I'm healed of the pain. I will be silent no more. I'm free from the lies, love opened my eyes. I will be silent no more. Love broke through to the heart of me. Now the truth has come and set me free from the past.
Pretty inspirational, isn't it? I know every time I watch that music video, I don't know, I get little chills to think that we've had so many gatherings. We've had thousands of those kind of gatherings. You saw the pictures of the women marching in Washington, and then, you know, some of the other pictures are just in the highways and byways all across America. And we've had people having these gatherings with "I regret my abortion," the dads hold the signs, "I regret lost fatherhood," all over the country. Some places like in their Capitol building, other places, like I said, during the March for Life, participating in other marches that are locally. It's amazing how much has happened since we've had those very, very first events with the campaign, and the inspiration that it gives us. You know, at the March for Life every year, we are there in front of the Supreme Court. The women march near the beginning of the march. When they get to the Supreme Court, one by one, they come up and give their testimonies. So if you've never had a chance to see them there, if you're coming to the March for Life in January, be sure to look for us in front of the Supreme Court. We're there usually for at least 2 hours. That's how long it takes for all the women and men, and actually family members now who give testimony. We've had now grandparents give testimony about how they mourn their aborted grandchild. We've had siblings give testimony too about they mourn their aborted sibling because they grow up to realize that their mom, you know, aborted a brother or sister in the family, and that's someone who's missing from the family portrait. So it's very, very inspirational. And again, use our website throughout the year, silentnomore.com. Get involved, spread the testimonies, and of course, let's not forget to find healing. That's the most important thing. So again, abortionforgiveness.com. Well, one thing we all can do is prayer, can't we? We can pray for those children who've been aborted. We can pray for the moms and the dads. And one of the things that Father Frank Pavone has done is written this beautiful prayer book called In the Heart of His Mercy. And in the Heart of His Mercy, it says, prayers to heal the wounds of abortion. And what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to share one of those prayers with you. This is a prayer for mothers who have lost a child to abortion. Lord of all life, you have entrusted us to the care of one another and called us to be one body in Christ. You call us to rejoice with those who rejoice and to weep with those who weep. Lord, you have compared the love you have for us to the love a mother has for her own child. Hear our prayer today for all mothers who have lost children to abortion. Help us to understand the pain that is in their hearts and to be a living sign to them of your welcome, your mercy, and your healing. Help them to undergo with courage the process of grief and the journey of healing. Never allow them to feel alone. Always refresh them with the presence of your Spirit and of their brothers and sisters in Christ. Console them with the sure hope that you love and care for their children. Give them new strength, that even while they grieve what they have lost, they may look forward to all the good that you still have in store for them. Lord of healing and hope, give us all the forgiveness of our sins and the joy of your salvation. And we ask this in the name of Jesus the Lord. Amen. Again, in the Heart of His Mercy, I'd like to send it to you as a free gift. Just send me an email at orders@priestforlife.org. Tell me how many copies of In the Heart of His Mercy you'd like. It's a beautiful prayer book to add to your daily prayer life. Thank you for joining us again for another episode. And stay tuned now, too, for another episode of The Catholic View for Women. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to another edition of The Catholic View for Women, our show for women and men, anyone who wants to watch actually, with news and views for women and men from a truly Catholic perspective. I'm Teresa Tomeo, and I also host the morning radio show here at EWTN Global Catholic Radio, The Catholic Connection. And with me as my co-host, of course, as always, the lovely, effervescent Astrid Bennett Gutierrez from Hispanics for Life and Los Angeles Pregnancy Services, and Janet Marana from Priest Her Life, Silent No More, and you can also see her right here on EWTN. Many of you know her well from Defending Life, where she's also a co-host. So this program is an exciting one because this is about each of us making a difference. We've entitled this program The Power of One. And I know you ladies deal with the public a lot, as do I, and I hear from so many people who say, oh, I'm just this or I'm just that. I don't have a theology degree. Gosh, I could never witness. I could never make a difference. But that really is such a wrong approach. You're setting yourself up for a disappointment, and you're also really insulting God in some ways. Because all of us are born and given the gift of evangelization, and we're all called to evangelize by virtue of our baptism.
Absolutely. You know, if you were to ask me, would I be doing the things I'm doing now 10 years ago, I would tell you, crazy. I wasn't like thinking in these terms, but then God opens the doors and you have to walk through them. You know, He's giving that opportunity, so you're being called to do it, you know?
Yes.
And you don't have to wait for, you know, someone to say, okay, do it. You just have to, you know, get that an answer to God's call and opportunity.
And in everyday life, too, I get to see women that are in crisis pregnancies, and these women are faced with this decision, and the culture saying, you know, don't have this baby, you know, and here these women are, many are docile to the voice of God against adversity, choosing life, like our Blessed Mother, saying yes to life. So we see women that have everything against them, choosing God, choosing life. So all of us have opportunities to really make a huge consequential difference in our world in many ways.
And if you look at the saints, there's so many great examples of them saying yes to God. Many of them, if you would look at them, let's say in the from a current perspective, you'd say, well, how could they do that? They're so young, they're so inexperienced. But the two saints we're going to talk about in the first part of this segment of The Power of One is a perfect example of exactly what we're discussing.
Right. Well, and we've been highlighting a saint on every episode, but this time, Power of One was so powerful, we selected two. So our first one, of course, is Saint Bernadette, and her feast day is April the 16th. She was born in Lourdes, France on January 7th, 1844. At the age of 14, near a cave, she witnessed the first of 18 apparitions of the Virgin Mary, who identified herself as the Immaculate Conception. At 22, Bernadette chose to withdraw to the convent and mother house of the Sisters of Charity of Nevers. She stayed there until her death in 1879. She was canonized on December the 8th, 1933, and usually depicted in the dress of a shepherd or a nun. Her name is of German origin and means brave as a bear. And of course, recently, Teresa, you got to
That's right. My husband Dominic, who's also a deacon, is a knight, invested as a knight in the Order of Malta. And each year, the Order of Malta from around the world, they have a convention that they gather in Lourdes. And what they do, actually, it's all about serving the sick, or the malades, as which is a French word for sick. And what was amazing to me about visiting Lourdes, well, the basilica is beautiful, the grounds are beautiful, the grotto was beautiful. But what I kept thinking about was just what we were discussing a minute ago, the power of one. Here's a young girl. She was a child, basically, and she was a sickly child, and she really, her family referred to her as illiterate and even called her stupid. Her teachers referred to her as being, you know, not the brightest one, you know, in the bunch. And yet she was so strong when she saw Our Lady. At first she didn't know who she was, and then eventually she identifies herself as the Immaculate Conception, which was right after, actually, the dogma of the Immaculate Conception that had been confirmed. But how would this little country girl at the foothill of the Pyrenees know anything about this theological teaching called the Immaculate Conception? But she knew that she saw Our Lady, and she kept talking and talking and talking. And one of our homework assignments is going to be this book that was written by Franz Werfel, The Song of Bernadette, which the movie was based on. They should also watch the movie. We should put that in our homework assignment. But she's amazing. Absolutely
and of course, our second saint, again, a woman from France. It was Joan of Arc. And she was born in France in 1412. And she also was illiterate. She was an illiterate peasant. And at the age of 13, she heard the voices of saints calling on her to free France. At the time, was involved in a 100 Years' War with England. She thus went into battle against the army of the English. Later on, she was declared a heretic and a betrayer, but then the Holy Father overturned that verdict. But she died though during that time when she was betrayed, burned at the stake, burned at the stake. You know, and then she finally was canonized all the way in 1920. Imagine how many
Hundreds of years went by before her canonization. She's depicted in armor, bearing her standard in her armor in battle. She's a protector of telegraph and radio operators.
That's
so radio, radio for you. I don't know,
You know,
but you do some radio, Teresa.
Yeah,
so,
just a little. Yeah.
A little. And she's also the patron of France. And her name has an origin in Hebrew, which means Yahweh is gracious. So again, you know, a young woman, just like these two ladies were illiterate. It says poor backgrounds, right?
Basically from the middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere, both of them, and look what they accomplished and look what they did. So, you know, for women watching out there and say, oh, well, you know, I don't have a theology degree, like you said in the opening. Pray to these two saints. To give you the courage to do what gives God is calling you to do.
And I think about them, the bottom line is the power of one. All it takes is one person, but it's really the power of your yes. Just like you mentioned the Blessed Mother, it's the power of that yes to God, and then God working through you. And we're going to go to our clip right now because the shows go by so fast. There's so much to talk about. But this is a good example of a young woman that we mentioned in a previous show who is originally from Nigeria, now living in Great Britain. Her name is Uju. We caught up with her in Rome, and she's very involved in the pro-life movement, standing up against the push for contraception in her native land of Nigeria and across the African continent. And she said, no, I have to do something. She wrote a letter. I read it on the air. It went viral. She now is involved in her own ministry for pro-life movement. And we're going to talk to her, and we did talk to her actually in Rome, about really what it means when you say yes to God.
Well, I had seen the interview that she had on CNN. And it shocked me because of the boldness of the untruth she was presenting about Africa. So I had to write it. All I could think about were all my sisters and aunties and, you know, friends in Nigeria who she was supposedly presenting and representing, and I had to respond. I had to say no. She had said that that she met women in Nairobi in Kenya who wanted contraceptives, but that didn't sound like the African woman. You know, that I grew up in Africa all those years, and I just started writing to say no, don't do this. But at first it started off as reasons. Just, it wasn't supposed to be an article. It wasn't supposed to be an open letter. All I wanted to do was just to write the kind of effect how contraception was going to bring to my people, and just some of the things that were diametrically opposed to our cultural heritage as Africans. So I had to write it, and it started as with a few lines, and then it grew and it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just kept writing. 5 hours down the line, it had become an open letter, and I didn't know what to do with it. I thought, well, if I send this to Gates Foundation, surely they'll throw it out through the window. I will send it to someone who will care to at least read it. And then I went to your website, and I sent it to the email address that was there, and you took it out and launched it boldly to the world. So all I wanted, as I said, was just to show it to somebody. And the day I sent it honestly to you, all I thought you were going to do with it was to have the points and to have the facts that really Africans are not asking and scrambling and scraping for contraception. That was all. And then you read it, and one thing led to another. And you know, the rest it just became a domino effect that I would say God started off with you, and now it's gone so far, it's gone beyond me, and it's all the better because now I know really has nothing much to do with me. All I just did was to write the letter. Well, with what has happened to me, surely anybody, you know, God can use anybody. All it takes is the fiat to say yes. Yes to God, yes to the promptings of the Holy Spirit. I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I had just prayed the Rosary, 5 decades of the Rosary, and that led me to this point where I had to write the letter. And so it was as if the words didn't even come from me. So anybody, God can choose to use anybody, but I think our job is to stand firm and say, yes, Lord, I will do whatever you want me to do, however you want me to do it, as long as you want it in the way you want it, just because you want it. So that is the story of me and the open letter. I've just come back from Nigeria, where we had a massive conference for life, which is really a fest of its kind, at least in this part of Nigeria. And while I was there, a lot of people were asking, we need to do this more often. We need to do this more often. So I'm hoping that if God has chosen to use me in this way, maybe I will have to face Africa a bit more closely to serve the gospel of life among my people, and bring the gospel of life and the message of life to my people, especially in this age and time when it's obvious that on the international stage, there are definitely people who are real proponents of the culture of death, specifically directed towards Africans. So I'm hoping that God will use my little life.
And you know, ladies, in Uju's case, she was, you know, just working and going to church. She was a good Catholic, loved her faith, but she wanted to do more. And she was so upset about this. She said, I have to do something. And she and I keep in touch. We've become email friends. And she says to me, I can't believe everything that God has been doing. But the bottom line is, it's not about her. It wasn't about St. Bernadette. It wasn't about St. Joan of Arc. Right. The Blessed Mother. It wasn't about her. It was about Christ. It was about always the fiat, always being giving yourself to God.
Exactly. And in this youth, and a person who is too young or feels that they're ignorant, don't know too much, I think that God uses those people to confound the world, to basically make a statement. And then somebody like Uju, so docile, instead of being discouraged by the fact that, oh my goodness, contraception is being, bombarded in my country, and saying, well, what can I do? It's too much of a problem. These groups have so much money and political power. And she said, no, I have to speak up. And now with social media and your radio program and everything, this got out. So maybe more people will get involved with fighting what's going on in Africa and also Latin America. Planned Parenthood Federation is international, right, and they're pushing contraception like all it's over. The best all over thing. The world. Right. When people, what they need is health care. What they need is to learn methods like natural family planning.
Right, and they need better infrastructures. Exactly. For example, in Nigeria, what the interesting thing, remember when in our show on vocation, where Father Frank, our spiritual director, said, God gives you the desire, the ability, and the opportunity. That's right. She had the desire to help and to address this problem, but she also had the ability. She has a medical background. Yes. So she was able to use that medical background and explain the conditions in her country. That's and say the families don't need contraception. Not only do they need to understand the faith, as we all do, but they need the infrastructure medically to help them with other issues in terms of prenatal care, postnatal care, other things like that. So this is someone like St. Bernadette and like St. Joan of Arc who said, I can do something, but taking the step toward God and allowing God to use that power of one with the power coming from Him. We have to take a break, so when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more, and we'll have another clip from someone else who said yes, and God has her now running a March for Life in Rome. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Catholic View for Women. Thanks so much for joining us. Teresa Tomeo, along, of course, with Astrid Bennett Gutierrez and Janet Murata, talking about the power of one. You can make a difference. One person saying yes to God, and God taking that yes and doing amazing things, because it's all about Him. And we talked about St. Joan of Arc, St. Bernadette. You heard a clip and saw a clip actually from our friend Uju. And now we want to go to another interview that Janet and I actually conducted in Rome with Virginia Cota. Now, I met Virginia originally back in January at the March for Life. She came to the march, which of course in Washington is international, to tell us about what she's doing in Rome and how the Rome March for Life began. So we're going to listen to what Virginia has to say about the importance of saying yes to God and letting God do the rest.
We thought to go on year after year, increasing, of course, a little bit the participants to the march, but never with such a great amount of people participating. And especially, I think that it was the enthusiasm that the people resented participating to the march, and this was, I think, the best success of the march. In Italy, something was missing. What I saw in other countries, and especially in US, that we never had Catholics, of course, because Italy is a Catholic country, but also people involved in the public square in defense of life. And so I thought really that that Italy was missing something, and so that we needed to do an effort in organizing a movement, a public movement in the public square. Well, in fact, we started in defending family. so in family issues. And but of course, family and life are very linked, and so of course we always followed the family issues and pro-life issues, and participating to the different marches in the different countries. We thought that it was time to defend also life in the public square, because we do it for family, and especially now that we have the problems of homosexual wedding and homosexual adoptions. So we thought that this is also an important issue, of course, to follow, and so the family and life are very much linked together. When the date of the march approaches, and I feel sometimes to be a little bit tired. I think, well, this perhaps won't last long, so it will be for perhaps another year, but not too much. But then, of course, the results and also what the people, how they react and how much they need that. I really feel that I cannot do a step backward, and so that we have to go on, and especially and especially for myself, because I think that the defense of life today is really at the core of the defense of Christian civilization. Well, the faith in God, and prayer, especially, because I think that without prayer we cannot achieve anything. So every morning when I go to Mass or when I start the prayers, I always think that this is really the thing that makes me doing something. So and of course the love for God. And I think that today we have to defend the rights of God in our society, and this, I think, is the most important thing to do today, because in our societies relativism has pushed God away. So people don't believe in God any longer, and the younger people, so the youngest, have lost a lot. So I think that what we have to do as Catholics, what we have to do is to concentrate in the defense of the rights of God in our society. I think that this is what exactly God asks us, is to accomplish in our little own world, because we cannot do everything. And even the march, when I think what we have achieved with the march, it's nothing compared to all what is happening in the world. So I think that what God asks us is only to accomplish our own duty every day in the little things, and then if He wants, He can change the world in a minute.
I love testimonies like this. I really
Absolutely.
do.
And when you think of Marches for Life, of course, the original March for Life that started all these international ones was really in the United States with Nellie Gray, who we lost recently. But she was just one woman, a lawyer, legal background, and said, abortion is legal, we have to stand up and do something. She started, one woman, the March for Life. And then when you think about how do we get the West Coast Walk for Life, again, 2 women came to Washington and said, we want to take this now to the West Coast.
And we need it over there. Yeah,
yeah, and over in California, you need it. But they didn't have a big committee or anything or anyone helping them. They just, 2 women said, we can do this. We want to bring it to San Francisco even, of all places. And they did it, and now Virginia in Rome. I mean, when you think about the Roman population there, I mean, it's supposedly everything is being such a Catholic country, but you've been there. You see very few baby carriages even when you're walking around.
And most of the people that are in the churches, as you both know,
are the tourists.
Are the tourists. The pilgrims. Now, there's a little bit of a resurgence that's happening, thanks be to God, but it's been very secularized, and that's what Benedict XVI, when he was still our Holy Father, talked a lot about in terms of really, and that's really where this whole re-evangelization or the new evangelization came from.
Right. And I'm so inspired by this particular topic because in reading about Bernadette and St. Joan of Arc, I can't help but to think of our young women like Lila Rose, who are basically like a David and Goliath situation where God is calling them, they have a conversion, they're following the Lord, and now they're taking on just huge monsters. I mean, taking on Planned Parenthood and leading others to do the same, and not being afraid, you know, I'm only 15, I'm only in college, and doing so much to influence the culture. So I think everybody, if we're open our hearts to God, we'll see needs in the world. In particular, I mean, the pro-life movement is it's a clear one where all of us can make a difference and not be afraid. God will equip us, and He is calling us.
Well, I think the way God opens the doors too, because once you say yes, He wants to see that you trust Him enough to take you where He wants you to go. In Uju's case, it started with her writing this letter, and then she ended up doing a website, and she ended up actually contacting her. The bishops from Nigeria, from her hometown in Nigeria, actually contacted her. They embraced her letter to use it as in their materials to educate the public and to educate people coming to their country who want to bring contraception there. They have they had their first pro-life conference, a big one in Nigeria, in which Uju was involved. And she's also with a group now called Catholic Voices in Great Britain, which is a group of on fire Catholics witnessing about the faith. And she also told me she had an opportunity to do some interviews on radio and TV in Great Britain. So you just never know. But again, you have to have confidence in God, love God, and trust Him enough to know that I heard this, what's the saying? God is if He brings you to it, He's going to see you through it.
Absolutely.
Well, and notice these women, none of them belonged originally to an organization. They didn't get a committee or a board together. They didn't, they didn't think about, I got to raise this money. They just had a concept, an idea that I have to attack this problem. This is what I have to do, and they just went and
they didn't wait for their priest, not that you shouldn't seek spiritual direction or advice, but they didn't wait for somebody
they
to
didn't
say,
wait for permission.
You have to have permission.
They saw a need. They saw that, for example, like in the case of Lila Rose, she saw her generation being affected by abortion, being
There's another great example,
Lila
Rose.
Yes, in the university campuses, what better place? And saying, no, I can take this on, I can bring others to also do this, and hopefully more young people will join her example.
When she first went into, like, say, Planned Parenthood exposed to undercover work, she didn't have live action. Her ministry now, Live Action, was born out of her initial almost guts to go into those abortion clinics and show what was really going on and what was happening and how the women were being lied to. But you know, she didn't have the committee. She did the action first, and then now she has many other girls helping her. But that came later. She had the courage to go forward with what she felt God was telling her to do.
Yeah, and I think it's such an encouragement. And that's why we wanted to feature these two ladies.